For the people who make a living by fishing in the flooded rainforests of the Amazon, danger always lurks just beneath the surface of these calm waters. Every day, this tropical fish hunter and his son work in waters infested with some of nature's most deadly predators. A 20-foot anaconda prowls the muddy bottom. And above, hovering silently in the water, a caiman waits for its next victim. These waters are also home to the most dangerous, aggressive fish in the world, whose attack is so swift and savage it can virtually devour its prey before it loses consciousness. The piranha. Like an underwater wolf pack, they descend on prey in a furious frenzy. To the fisherman, the piranha with its razor teeth is just another casual hazard of life, of which there are many. Yet these fishermen walk unafraid of the danger that swims between their legs in the shadows of the river bottom. However, for most of us, piranha are like something out of a horror film. They are the killer fish of lore, but is their reputation deserved? This is Amazonas, the region that encompasses northern Brazil and southern Venezuela. The rainforest here is largely undisturbed, and life goes on now as it did 10,000 years ago. On the surface, the forest seems serene. It is easy to be seduced by the gentle flow of water and by the endless grace of nature within the forest. Beneath the facade, however, lies a different story. Part of the piranha's ferocious reputation derives from the fact that it's so widespread in South America. Brazil alone has 24 different towns, rivers, and mountains named Piranha. Within virtually every river, stream, and lagoon lurks a fish that has been described as the perfect killing machine. The cannibal fish, the piranha. The piranha has been an object of fascination since the first great white explorers who ventured into the Amazon returned with harrowing tales of the killer fish 200 years ago. They described the fish as the embodiment of evil, a swirling pestilence that devoured man and beast alike. The picture these men drew of the piranha was an ancient evil, one of biblical proportions, and to this day, it remains part of our collective nightmare. Little has changed since the first white man ventured into the Amazon. The inroads of civilization have yet to penetrate its hostile borders, where the truth about the killer fish remains shrouded in superstition and ignorance. Like most myths, part of the piranha's lore is shaped by our fears, and like most myths, part of its lore is rooted in reality. The northern Amazon basin, the area between the Amazon River and the Rio Negro in Brazil, and the Orinoco River in Venezuela, is a primeval vastness, in which time is everywhere and yet nowhere. To walk in the forest is to lose sight of the sun. It is to walk in a land of perpetual shade and rain. It is to live beneath the smothering closeness of the canopy. Yet people learn to adapt, and the Amazon is dotted with tribes of indigenous peoples who have coped with hardship for untold centuries. To the Pinari Indians of the Manipure region of Venezuela, the piranha is far less dangerous than other hazards that jeopardize life in the Amazon. In spite of the claim of early explorers that virtually every native in the Amazon had been maimed by the piranha, the Pinari have few such scars. To these people, to be bitten by a piranha is more a measure of stupidity than of bad luck. The truth about piranha is that they attack prey only under certain circumstances. Most of the time they wouldn't pay attention to a catfish, but its erratic swimming has caught their attention. Piranha rarely attack healthy animals in free-flowing water. Instead, they hunt the weak, the dying, and the dead in the same way that wolves seek the weakest members of a herd to attack. Piranha do not school together like most fish. They only tolerate each other in a sort of uneasy truce as they compete for food. Their attack is so swift that even though the piranha have consumed most of the catfish's body, it continues to gasp. Soon, virtually nothing is left of the catfish. For the Pinari, however, the river holds threats much greater than the piranha. These men are hunting what they fear most in the water, the docile stingray. The stingray lies motionless on the shallow river bottom, usually covered with sand or mud, virtually invisible even in clear water. Ordinarily, the stingray is harmless. But if someone should step on one, its defensive reaction is to whip its tail, which is armed with a barbed spike covered with an acid slime, into the unsuspecting wader's foot or leg, and then thrash the barb in the wound. Such an agonizing injury can take months to heal. Most of the young Pinari men have stingray wounds. They hate the rays so much that whenever they see one, they'll spear it, cut off its tail, and then throw the bloodied ray back into the water to be devoured by piranha. The Pinari have learned the rules of survival over generations of trial and error. Experience has taught them that the piranha is to be respected, not feared, and like every plant and animal, it lives by a set of rules that govern its behavior. Piranha aren't the scourge described by early overzealous white explorers. They're a natural part of the ecosystem. In these waters, the danger of a piranha attack is minimal, but they also know that not far from this spot there are places where no Pinari would ever set foot, because to do so would almost guarantee an attack. An old saying in the Amazon goes, in the summer, it rains every day. In the winter, it rains all day. During the rainy season, the waters rise, flooding the basin. forests, which were dry, fill with water as the rivers claim a broad empire. The dark confines of the rivers and lagoons give way to a spectral forest. For the piranha, the lean, hungry days of the dry season give way to plenty as they range through the deadfall in search of prey. Like a tide, however, the waters gradually ebb. While most piranha return to the river channels, many get trapped in shallow pools where they become easy prey for the hundreds of species of birds that live here. Some piranha, however, get locked in deeper lagoons that can retain enough water to keep them alive until the rain returns. But their reprieve may be short-lived, because now they confront a slow death by starvation. In the early months of their quarantine, piranha prey upon the food fishes in their pools. Gradually, they exhaust their supply, and the competition for food increases. Soon, only the piranhas will be left, and they will turn into cannibals, devouring each other at the slightest sign of weakness. And whenever opportunity presents itself, as it does with this dead hawk, the piranhas surge to feed. The Amazon is a land of balances, bright and dark, hunger and famine, life and death. The misfortune of one is the fortune of another. There is no evil here, only good. That which seems cruel or savage is simply an efficient form of beauty without which there can be no hope for balance. Every design for life is sharply drawn in the Amazon. Purpose is singular, to continue the species. It has taken nature eons to design a complex system of interdependency, wherein every plant and animal not only lives for itself, but also for the entire community of life. So it is with the piranha. It doesn't exist solely for its own sake. It lives because it plays an essential role in the health of the Amazon. Like the wolf, the piranha is a predator at the top of the food chain. And like the wolf, it rarely preys upon healthy, strong animals. While the piranha is a predator, it is also a scavenger and feeds extensively off the carcasses of dead animals. In the larger scheme of things, the piranha's job is to keep the river clean of detritus, much in the same way that vultures and hyenas keep the savannas clean. Piranha cull out the weak, the sick, and the dead, thus maintaining the health of the river. And yet you don't have to go far on any river of the Amazon to hear chilling stories of piranha attacks on healthy people. Sebastião Aluez is the malaria control officer in the hamlet of Barcelos on the Rio Negro in northern Brazil. As a child, he was savagely attacked by a swarm of piranha. He remembers as a boy watching his father gut a jungle pig on the riverbank.
Eu sou nascido e criado aqui no Rio Negro, município de Barcelos, né? E com idade de 3 anos, meu pai caçando, ele caçava, pescava.
Without thinking, he jumped into the water, which was teeming with piranha that had been attracted by the scent of the pig's blood and entrails. The piranha attacked his mouth the moment he entered the water, and even though his father pulled him out within seconds, he would be heavily scarred for life. But incidents like these are isolated, for the people of the Amazon have learned not to swim with an open wound and to avoid cleaning fish or game in the water where they bathe. They've learned to be cautious, to literally look before they leap. Northwest of Barcelos, across the border in Venezuela, lies the expansive savannas called the Llanos. At a distance, the Llanos appears flat and featureless, but it is a land of illusions, where water plants suddenly burst into flight, a land of intense beauty and magic. The struggle for life here is as intense as it is in the rainforest to the south. The lush green of the wet season has given way to the parched colors of unbroken heat. A dry sea of high grasses extends for 250,000 square miles from the Andes to the west and the Orinoco River to the east. March is the height of the dry season. In this massive dust bowl lie a few isolated pools of water. They are the fading remnants of the flood season, and like magnets, they draw life to them. The drabness of the Llanos explodes into brilliant color as scarlet ibis, white herons, and pink spoonbills plumb the shorelines for food. This lagoon is full of trapped piranhas. These piranhas are the most aggressive of all the species. The Venezuelans call them Caribes, named after a tribe of cannibalistic Indians that once lived on the Caribbean coast. The Caribe is one of 2 red-bellied species of meat-eating piranhas. It's a brilliantly engineered fish. Compact and muscular, the piranha's distinctive head shape allows for it to thrust its short, powerful jaws forward on the attack. The piranha's teeth are precisely occluded and so sharp that Indian weavers once used the jaws as scissors. These Caribe have exhausted their food supply, and there's nothing left for them to do except wait for the rains. Above this endgame struggle for survival, from dawn until dusk, the relentless sun continues to burn off water. Every day, the shoreline loses precious inches. If the rains don't return soon, the sun will slam close the gates to this death trap. Nearby, other pools have already dried up. The signposts of death are everywhere. As the pool shallows, the heat exhausts the oxygen in the water. The water temperature is rising. Soon the water itself will smother life in the lagoon. There is nowhere for these piranha to swim. For them, relief will not come soon enough, and in 2 days either they'll become a meal for the thousands of birds that feast upon the dying fish, or their bodies will bake in the relentless Amazonian sun. But even as these vultures feast on the luckless piranha, so the balance will tip, and in a few months, those that rule today will come to be ruled. As the rainy season returns, the shallow bowl that was dusty llanos is now filled with water. Those few that survived the death pools have been reprieved. A new stream of life washes in from the rivers and fans out into reclaimed territory. Life explodes in the llanos as hundreds upon hundreds of species of birds return to their nesting grounds. Herons and storks brood in nests that overhang the water. Below, a congregation of caiman and piranha wait for the inevitable clumsy chick to fall out of the nest. This young bird was nearly fully grown and ready to fly. By some misadventure, however, it fell into the water and was devoured immediately by the piranha. The same birds that fed upon the hapless piranha a few months ago now give up their young to them. So the ledger balances as prey once again becomes predator. In parts of the llanos, the capybara, the largest member of the rodent family, has been making a dramatic comeback. A fully grown capybara male can weigh as much as 150 pounds. Savored by Venezuelans for their tender, flavorful meat, the capybara was hunted relentlessly for over 100 years, until their numbers had dropped dangerously low. Now, protected by the state, capybara herds are restoring their rightful place in the llanos in spite of widespread poaching. Capybaras live in family groups of up to 40 individuals. Each family group is headed by a patriarchal male, who spends most of his time fending off challenges from younger males who want to lay claim to his harem. The females and their young spend much of their time either on land basking in the early morning sun, or in the water grazing on water plants. Eternally vigilant, they must watch out for the caiman that glides silently in their midst. Here, survival depends upon alertness. Carelessness, even for a second, can spell disaster. This female probably lost her leg in a near-fatal encounter with a caiman. Her experience has heightened her alertness to the hidden dangers in the water, but it is too late for another capybara, who turned out to be far less fortunate. The capybara lives on the margins between two dangerous worlds. In the water, it can become prey to caiman and piranha, and on land, it is susceptible to the gun of poachers and other predators such as the vulture. Vultures commonly prey on unprotected capybara young by pecking out their eyes. The shock of such a trauma inevitably leads to death, and the vultures need only to wait until their meal is ready. Nearby, capybaras watch as the vultures squabble over possession of the dead baby. In a few hours, little will remain except for a few scattered bones. Not far away, a large satellite male has a gaping infected wound on his shoulder. The capybara has thick skin, which is normally its defense against crocodiles and piranha. But open wounds such as this are invitations to disaster. The smell of infection is already in the air, and it has not gone unnoticed. The omnipresent vulture is an eternally vigilant bird, and its presence is an indicator of death. Vultures fill the same niche on land as the piranha does in the water. They are nature's cleanup crew. Vultures have a keen sense of smell and hearing. Any disturbance in the natural flow of life is magnetic to them, and they appear almost supernaturally at the first sign of weakness or sickness. This capybara is within hours of death. The vultures are patient. If the capybara should die on land, his body will belong to the vultures and other land scavengers, such as this kare-kare. Much to the chagrin of the vultures, the male takes refuge in the water to escape the fierce heat that is compounded by his infection. The cooler water has a soothing effect, and for the moment he feels better. Below, however, the Caribes have already scented his blood. By mid-afternoon, the male has died. The smell of his death has already permeated the water, and fish have begun to swarm around his body. Unremitting and unrestrained, the feeding frenzy begins. First, the piranha eat their way through the wound. Within seconds, they excise a portion of the shoulder, allowing them to invade the body cavity, where first they attack the organs and then the musculature. Above, the dead capybara trembles as the piranha work their way through the rest of his shoulder and up into his neck. A second species of piranha, the silver Cerasalmus irritans, also shows up for the feast. Within minutes, these 6-inch piranhas will reduce a 130-pound capybara to a few pounds of skin and bones. Three days later, the winds of the savannah blow the remains of the male capybara ashore. The piranha we know comes from the tales told by great white explorers who ventured into the Amazon in search of adventure and immortality. Men like Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th President of the United States, who described the killer fish as a swirling pestilence, feared by all who trespassed upon their domain. During his expedition to Brazil in 1914, Roosevelt wrote in his diary,
"Piranha are the most ferocious fish in the world. They will snap off a hand incautiously trailed in the water. They mutilate swimmers. They will rend and devour alive any wounded man or beast. For blood in the water excites them to madness. The rabid, furious snap of their jaws drives their teeth through flesh and bone. The head, with its short muzzle, staring malignant eyes, and gaping, cruelly armed jaws, is the embodiment of evil ferocity."
Roosevelt's tales painted an indelible picture of the killer fish that endures to this day. But was his perception of the piranha accurate? Was it really the embodiment of evil? Or was it a reflection of his sense of a mythic beast? The piranha lives in a dark world. Here, the sun is little more than a haze in the water. As a result, it has had to develop a way of seeing through its senses of sound and smell. These men are fishing the Caicara River in the Llanos in Venezuela. The fisherman splashes through the water as he stretches out his net to the opposite bank. The Caribe in the river have heard his splashing and divert their attention to the sound. In a split second, they collectively decide to attack. The piranha haven't been attracted to the sound of the fisherman, whose walk is steady and measured, but to another sound, one which is much more magnetic.
¡Cuidado! ¡Ahí vienen los Caribe!
The sound of panic.
¡Prisa, muchachos! ¡Ahí vienen los Caribe!
They are attacking a peacock bass that has gotten tangled in the gill net. The fishermen know immediately what is happening and haul in the net as fast as they can. Within seconds, the piranha have eaten the bass, bones and all, down to its head. They've also severed parts of the net, but the damage can be fixed. The men are lucky. Piranhas frequently damage nets beyond repair. The threat from a piranha isn't related to its size. Compared to this species of piranha called Hollandi, the pirarucu, at 10 feet long and weighing over 300 pounds, is a giant compared to the modest size of the Hollandi. Most piranha are small, no more than the size of a man's fist. More than anything, the piranha's fierce reputation comes from the severity of its bite. The piranha's mouth is made to bite chunks out of its prey. Most predatory fish seize their prey in their jaws and either lacerate or crush it. But the piranhas, like these red bellies, bite off their food in olive-sized chunks. While a single bite would hardly be life-threatening, the piranha swallows the meat whole and then bites again and again. A swarm of piranha attack in a roiling frenzy from virtually every angle. Yet the indigenous people on the upper Orinoco River let their naked children splash in the water while they batter their laundry on the rocks. If any sounds would be an invitation for attack, these would be. But attacks are almost unheard of here. Where is the bloodthirsty beast of legend? The so-called black is a giant among its peers. Less aggressive than its red-bellied cousins, the Rombaeus looks all the more menacing for its glaring red eyes. The largest of the meat-eating species, a fully grown Rombaeus, can reach a length of 1.5 feet and weigh nearly 10 pounds. Its jaws are so strong and its teeth are so sharp that it could amputate a man's hand at the wrist in 2 or 3 bites. There are about 35 different species of piranha, only 5 of which pose any real danger to humans. The majority of them, in fact, eat fruits, seeds, and vegetative matter. Those that do eat meat rely mainly on other fish, crabs, beetles, and an occasional frog or lizard. But it is the piranha of lore, the man-eater, that has captured the imagination of anyone who has seen one on the attack. In Venezuela, the Rombaeus has the outrageous nickname Capoburo, which means donkey castrator. Its name comes from the long-held belief that male livestock that must ford a river is in grave danger of losing its testicles to the piranha. The story is deeply embedded in the popular consciousness of the people. Stories persist of cattle drivers who will sacrifice a sick or old animal to the piranha in order to divert attention away from the herd as it crosses downstream. Scientists scoff at the idea that this practice was ever maintained and say the story is part of the lore of the piranha. Others swear they have witnessed the event. This archival footage from the 1930s shows cattlemen sacrificing a cow to piranha in the river while crossing their herd. The authenticity of the document is hard for us to judge. Was it done to protect the herd, or was it done to entertain the camera? The truth has been lost with time. Today, piranha can still cause serious damage to horses and cattle, which is the major industry of the llanos. Piranha will often nip cattle on the nose as they try to drink, and while these bites aren't immediately threatening, any wound in the Amazon is subject to infection, and such bites can, in fact, lead to death. Some ranchers are trying to deal with the problem of landlocked piranha by introducing peacock bass as a deterrent. In a duel played out beneath the waters of the llanos, a piranha in the silver colors of a breeding adult guards its nest against an invading bass. As a predator, the peacock bass will attack and eat juvenile caribes. But once the piranha population matures, even the noble peacock bass has no chance. And so again, the ledger balances as predator becomes prey. Piranha seem to justify the concept of paranoia. An unprovoked attack can happen at any moment and usually from the rear. They'll frequently nip the fins of each other, and it's not hard to find a fish with a perfect semicircle excised from its back. But each fish remains eternally wary of its neighbor, because even among their own, weakness means a quick death. Balances in the Amazon are subtle but critical. This bird is a jacana and is commonly found in the llanos. Ever alert, it has found an anaconda partially submerged in the hyacinth and is sounding the alarm. Anacondas are among the world's largest snakes. An average-sized specimen can easily measure 20 feet and weigh over 200 pounds. Their natural prey are caiman and capybara, but smaller anacondas often take birds. This jacana isn't taking any chances and wants the world to know that danger lurks nearby. Many of the threads that connect life are subtle and only come after months or years of observation. Sometimes, however, the incursions of man strain or even break the fragile threads that make these connections. Even small dams such as these interfere with the natural flow of the river. Fish that must migrate in order to breed may have difficulty getting upstream. As humanity continues to make increasing demands upon this habitat for resources, they will in turn have an even more profound effect on the environment. It's hard to predict how man's influence will affect the Llanos in the long run, but whatever the change, for better or worse, even the hated piranha faces an uncertain future. Has lived his entire life in the Llanos of Venezuela. He has had 7 wives and is the father of 24 children, 20 of them boys. Oddly enough, Ramon attributes his remarkable ability as a progenitor to the piranha. In fact, many men like Ramon attribute their sexual prowess to a bowl of piranha head soup. Similarly, just as many women have blamed their fecundity on that same bowl of soup. It is a widely held belief in South America that piranha soup is an aphrodisiac. There's no scientific evidence to support the contention that piranha heads affect the human libido in any way. But when it comes to attributing root causes for sustained virility, either in the Llanos of Venezuela or in the rainforest of Brazil, piranha head soup is named most frequently as the main co-conspirator. Go to any fish market in South America, like this one in the Freeport city of Manaus on the Amazon River, and you'll find piranha for sale. They're a bony fish, similar to carp. The meat is mild and not particularly distinguishable. Piranha aren't popular as a food fish. There are many other fishes that supply a delicious, firm flesh as opposed to the meager pickings of a piranha. And yet, the piranha maintains a strong hold in the colorful mythology of the Amazon. A few hours upriver from Manaus lies Lago das Piranhas, the Lake of the Piranhas. Several different species of piranhas swim in this lake. During the high water season, when the river overflows its banks, the lake is safe. Even so, fishermen still encounter the worrisome problem of constantly catching piranha in their nets. Years of experience has taught them how to dispatch the piranha quickly and efficiently, but not how to avoid catching them altogether. Fishermen here are resigned to them more as a perpetual nuisance than as a threat. The piranha is a part of any person's life who lives along the waterways of the Amazon. These people are caboclos, homesteaders who carve out a simple living in the remotest reaches of the wilderness. This caboclo man lives with his wife and child at the edge of a lagoon on the Madaxi River in Brazil. He's caught a small caiman for dinner and is cleaning it out in front of his house. Caiman is an important part of the caboclo's diet. knows there are piranha in the water with him, and he knows that when he throws the entrails into the water, they will swarm to devour the gut pile. But these piranha, called pirambeba, aren't as aggressive as their red-bellied cousins. Pirambebas are cannibals and normally feed on themselves, but they can't resist a delicacy as inviting as fresh entrails. The caboclos work and wash in the presence of the pirambebas without any fear. The dangerous piranhas in Brazil called cajus look very much like the red-bellied Venezuelan caribe. These cajus don't live in Brazil. They live 8,000 miles away in the Mediterranean Principality of Monaco. The National Museum of Oceanography in Monaco is an underwater observation post containing many fish specimens collected from around the world. Aquariums such as this one give scientists important glimpses into the hidden world of the piranha. Only recently have scientists made a concentrated effort to lift the veil that has kept the cannibal fish obscured in myth. Piranhas belong to a family of fish called cherisons, which usually scatter their eggs among aquatic plants and leave their young to hatch and fend for themselves. But this piranha is busy aggressively chasing away other fish from its crude nest. The fish with a gruesome reputation might have what we would loosely call a parental instinct. The nest is little more than a depression in the gravel, but piranhas have been known to actually clip off plants with their teeth in order to fashion out a hollow for their eggs. The female sprays hundreds of eggs like these on the bottom. The eggs will take 4 days to hatch, during which time the guardian parents will stand watch over them and chase away any intruder that comes too close to the nest. The eggs develop quickly, and within 24 hours of being fertilized, the basic structures of the fish are already developing. By the 4th day, the blind piranha have hatched into their larval stage. The larva's transparent heart beats furiously just below its head. These egg sac fry aren't breathing yet. They're so small they can absorb oxygen directly from their environment. During this time, the larvae are totally at the mercy of the elements, and without parents to guard against raiders, they'd quickly become food for other fishes. These remarkable close-ups show just how rudimentary newly hatched piranha are. They're still living off the nutrients within their yolk sacs. The lens of the eye is developing, but it'll be days before the fry can see anything. Day by day, the egg sac shrinks as the internal structures of the fry develop, but for now, they're still living off their nutrients. As the piranha larvae continue to grow, the parents keep a constant vigil on their behalf. They will not eat. Their purpose is to devote themselves entirely to the survival of the next generation of their species. By the 6th day, the retinas of the piranha's eyes have started to color. The characteristic jawline of the piranha is already pronounced, and its teeth have started to develop. The larvae have begun to breathe through their mouths. They're becoming more active and more aware of the world around them, but basically, they're as helpless now as the day they hatched. What piranha do under the unnatural conditions of a glass aquarium may or may not be what they do in the wild. Scientists can only surmise. Nonetheless, these captive piranhas reveal an unexpected side to their behavior. The larval piranha now enter the latter stages of their development. As each hour passes, they look more like their adult counterparts. Soon, they'll be on their own and ready to disperse into the general population. The piranha's reputation as a bloodthirsty predator is partly the result of the powerful emotional prejudice we have against animals that eat their own kind. The piranha's service is to the health of the river and the life within it. The strong mythology that surrounds the piranha colors our sense of what it really is. Like the wolf, the piranha frightens us because we feel threatened by what we perceive as an innate evil, when in fact we should admire it for the effortless way it fits into its ecosystem. The people who live with a piranha consider it neither boon nor bane. It is, like all life here, a necessary part of the rich tapestry that is the Amazon.